So then I said to him, you ought to customize your car insurance with Liberty Mutual, so you only pay for what you need.
Oh, Doug, can we talk about something other than work? It's the weekend.
Yeah. Weekends. Weekends are a lot like insurance.
Yeah.
Yep. Hot dog or chicken? Hot dog.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hi, welcome to I think we're at episode 4 of The Stitch Life, or we might be at 3, one or the other. But welcome to our episode. Today we're going to go over product distribution, whether it is brick and mortar versus e-commerce. There's also multiple other areas of distribution that you can work through as a designer. You can do pop-up shops, you can do trunk shows, you can invest into trade shows as well, and even subscription boxes have become a lot popular as well as I know e-commerce is the same, but some people have it in a mobile app platform. So a couple things to think about and to take into consideration when thinking about how your product is distributed is who is your target consumer. Your target consumer and how they shop and their shopping behaviors takes a toll on how they actually go to shop their products. So if your clientele or your target consumer is between the ages of, let's say, 20 to 30, then probably social media and e-commerce is probably the best way to work with them because they're constantly in their phones. They're looking at Instagram, they're shopping now, they're paying attention to like their email marketing and they can exceed the deals. Now, if your target consumer is, let's say, 45 to like 65, then you may not see them on a social content, which means that e-commerce would not be the best platform for you. It means that brick and mortar is the best platform for you because depending on the, whether they're, generation, whether millennials, Gen Z, baby boomers, all of these different types of people, the way they shop is different. So that 45 plus market likes to be a little bit more hands-on. They want to touch things. They want to feel things. So they want to be inside of a store so they can see things, or possibly a pop-up shop or even a trunk show because they're able to touch and feel the products before purchasing. And they may not be as technological and internet savvy as our younger counterparts. Now, a couple more things to think about is what it is that you're selling. If what you're selling requires that that a person really has to feel and touch and be inside of it, it probably is best that it's inside of a store. So ideally, let's say if you were in the fragrance market, the fragrance market is something that you have to feel, touch, see, and even the makeup market. If those are two of you in the beauty industry, you have to be inside of a store. The customer needs to be able to smell, they have to be able to use their senses. The customer needs to be able to see, and to feel and to hear the things too. So I would consider those things if you're in the beauty and the fragrance market. Now, if you're in the let's say athletic market, it might be a little bit easier with garments that are stretchy. So think about suiting versus active. Active is a lot more relaxed and has more of a relaxed fit. So if you're an active wear, probably having an e-commerce brand makes a lot more sense because it's just easier to buy. It's a simpler size chart. Grabbing something that's a small, medium, large is a little bit more simple than maybe grabbing something that is in a 2, 4, a 6, or 8, which is woven. So suiting, also something that's better in store. Bridal, better in store. Special occasion, when you need things customized, of course, are better to have a showroom of some sort or some type of space where some people can come in and try things on. For instance, if you are a special occasion designer and you offer alterations and tailoring on your garments, it probably makes the most sense for you to have a showroom space so that people can come in and feel and see the garments opposed to trying to collect measurements online. And then you're trying to go back and forth trying to figure out what the fit is like, which is very, very difficult when you're creating custom garments. So That's another thing to think about. Now, within the e-commerce world, because we don't want to necessarily, and this is also, I can say this is as well as in brick and mortar, in the e-commerce world, a lot of things are direct to consumer. So that means you're pretty much cutting out the wholesale middleman. So when you're going direct to consumer, you have a little bit more wiggle room with your pricing because a lot of times you're only calculating the cost to make the garment plus your markup. Whereas if you were working with a store or a brick and mortar, not everyone has the capabilities to open their own store, so they have to partner with different retailers in order to get their brands in store. Meaning that now there is a middleman for that wholesale market, and you have to either make your product more expensive, or you have to devalue, not even devalue, but you have to be a little bit more minimal on the materials that you're using. So if you are transitioning from, let's say, direct to consumer in your e-commerce site, and now you're transitioning into wholesale and retailers, then you have to go back to those cost sheets and really, really determine, okay, now I need to change up some of these fabrications so that they fit within a certain profit margin so that my suggested retail price to my retailer actually aligns with what the brand is. However, there's always a different way and more than one way to do everything. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with, and it would be if you're familiar with Sammy B. She is a New York based designer who has an e-commerce website that is direct to consumer, as well as Fee Noel, also an e-commerce website that has a direct to consumer. But the both of these ladies recently have had a partnership with Target. Now, I am a shopper of both of these ladies. I am a consumer of both of the things that they create. Now, the pieces that I have bought from them on their e-commerce website, direct to consumer, versus the pieces that are in Target is very different as far as quality goes. The fit is different, the fabrications are different, the silhouette itself is the same, but the quality is different because they have to now fit within the Target consumer of that Target customer. I hope that didn't go over your head because I used Target twice. But yeah, that's something that you have to think about, whether you have to raise the price or you have to lower it. And depending on the retailer, you will have to do one or the other. And more than likely, it's going to be you lowering the cost of the fabrications and the labor. So if you originally, maybe you produce all of your garments in the USA, of course, when you service a retailer like a Target, or a Walmart or Ross or Burlington, more than likely you're going to have to move your manufacturing overseas because now you need cheaper materials and you need cheaper labor in order for you to sell in a wholesale market. And on that level, we're talking about millions and millions of units in order to stock all of these different stores nationwide. So it's just something to think about when you're considering working with retailers, is that you might have to make yourself a diffusion brand, which designers do all the time. They have multiple different brands that land into different markets in order to meet different consumers where they are in the process. Well, not where they are, where they are as far as their shopping behaviors. So I would say right now, brick and mortar, and if you guys have noticed over the last couple of years, stores have been closing like crazy, depending on their product category as well as their pricing category. We saw a lot of bigger luxury stores here in New York close down their shops on Michigan. I'm sorry, I'm about to go back to Chicago. So a lot of them closed down their shops on Fifth Avenue. But in retrospect, same as Chicago, Michigan Avenue is a big shopping area, and a lot of stores also closed their doors and new stores open. So we saw some retailers take a hit, and we saw some retailers actually grow in that. Now, a lot of the retailers that grew in that is because they were offering a certain type of product. So if you haven't noticed, or if you've noticed over the years, we've seen like Rave Girl and Wet Seal and Charlotte Russe really go, out of business and close a lot of stores. But what we have seen is Uniqlo grow a lot during that time. It's because they have incorporated a lot of technology in their apparel. So if you're not keeping up with what's going on in the industry, and if you're not pivoting yourself as a designer, stores will close, and then you have less resources to put your clothing in. So retailers and designers really do work hand in hand. And of course, we have designers that are also retailers as well. So in the long game, you're going to want to create a growth strategy that includes all of your goals and where you see where you see your brand going, as well as a mission and a vision statement to decide, hey, I want to be in that wholesale market, or I want to be direct to consumer forever, because then I have more control of the quality of my product and my profit margin. So I want to hear from our sponsors quickly, and then we'll get back to diving deeper into product distribution.
There's a couple things. There's a couple things I'd like to say to you. After all the crazy things that we've been through, I needed you in the dead of night, the wake of the day, first broken light, and blind I'd follow you. I never realized how much I needed you.
Comfort. What we deliver by delivering.
And we are back. So let's go a little bit deeper into product distribution. As I was stating before about working through your target consumer and how their shopping behaviors actually affect them, you also want to think about more alternative ways to distribute product outside of e-commerce, but also outside of brick and mortar. So story time. I want to say about 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, I had a client that did not have a big e-commerce presence, but also did not care to work with stores. Now, a couple of things to note. When working with stores, you have to work within their compliance. So what compliance means is that the stores actually give you a manual or an instruction guide to how they want the products to be entered into their store. So this may be a certain plastic that they want things to come into, a certain hanger. They might want the UPC code on a certain side. They might want the hang tag in the back of the neck or in the arm, or in the wearer's left arm. There's multiple different things. And then their terms might be a little bit different. You may not get paid for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, which means you're fronting the money. So depending on what that contract looks like with a retailer, a designer, and this is specifically a small designer, could take a more of a hit than it actually being beneficial just to have that floor presence. And if you get hit into a big retailer like Saks, for instance, and I'm going to use that example because my client actually did have had a spot in Saks, it did not service her in any way. Her things were on a rack off into a corner. No one really there selling it. No one there really like pushing it out. So now, yes, I'm in this big retailer, but nobody knows who I am. And I don't have a salesperson dedicated to selling my items. They're going to go for higher ticket items and well-known brands opposed to giving my brand any attention. Second thing is, let's say you didn't actually read that full compliance manual the way you should have, or looked at all of the details, and then you sent it on let's say a shiny black hanger with a silver hook. Saks requires that you send garments to their store on a black matte hanger with a black hook. They also require that things be in a 1.75 millimeter plastic, and that the UPC code is on the right-hand side near the bottom. Now, if you didn't follow those very particular instructions to the T, you will take a risk of having a chargeback. Chargeback meaning you don't get paid and now you got to pay them because they had to do the work to fix those units in order to scan them into their EDI system and put them on their sales floor, which now they have to hire someone or have someone allocated to do so. So working with stores is not always the best for new and emerging designers if you're doing it independently, because there are a lot of things that you have to be aware of. Now, back to my client story. So she was not successful at Saks. Saks didn't work out for her. So she came up with this idea to do trunk shows in different cities. So what we would do is we would create our collection for the season. I would get all the samples made as her production manager, have all our fabrics, our lookbook, our line sheets, have all pricing, all color availables, and I'd have samples pretty much in every colorway that we were going to offer. Now, we would go to places like DC, in Utah, in Atlanta, in Houston, and Connecticut, and what we would do is we would rent out a hotel room. I'm not gonna say decorate the hotel, but create an experience there in a hotel suite. So we'd have hors d'oeuvres, we'd have champagne, we'd have all of the collection there, and then we'd have our lookbook, additional fabrics if someone wanted to customize something, or maybe if they wanted to get something in an alternative colorway, we had the options there laid out on the table. And what we would do is we would go to our local retailers that had the same target consumer as us. At this time, Saks still did have the same target consumer, but so did Neiman Marcus, so did Bloomingdale's, and so did Bergdorf and or Tootsie's, which is in the southern market. Now, what we do is go to these stores and speak to the salespeople. The salespeople in these stores are typically running off of commission. So if you go to them and approach them and you offer them something similar to what they're receiving and or more for access to their client book. So we would say, hey, we're having a shopping event over nearby. You should definitely invite your clientele to this exclusive shopping event for this brand. They'll have the option of having customization in their clothing, but they also will get an experience, and we'll have hors d'oeuvres and we'll have drinks, and let's be honest, drinks always draw people in. So once we do that, now we have a clientele book from a sales associate or a stylist inside of a retail store. They may have a long extensive client list that they want to bring in. Bring the ladies into this really dope what's the word I'm looking for? Shopping experience into what we have. They come in, they can view the collection, they can try things on, they can customize things. And I've seen this happen where we were able to make anywhere from 20 to 30 grand in each city. Now, another thing that this does and helps out with as a small designer is getting feedback on your samples, deciding, hey, should I change this fabric, or should I maybe offer it in a different way? So what you do is, as you go to these different cities, and as we went to these different cities and we took orders, and they were technically pre-orders or pre-sales because they're buying things based off of the samples. I take that data and use that data to create my stock order. So now I notice that every city we went to, everyone is getting this leather jacket in blue. I know that this leather jacket in blue is one of our high sellers because every city we went to, everyone's picking this out. So this is definitely one of the collection favorites. So now when I go into production, I now can take that data and maybe order an additional 10 to 15 of these particular ones for stock. So that maybe when I go do a pop-up shop, or when I have an experience where I can have, stylists pulling my clothing, I know what's going to be a high seller. And also I can just sell these items on my website. So she did have one, it just wasn't huge, but the option was still there. So this is a way of distributing product without necessarily going directly through the e-commerce route or directly with the wholesale route, but actually working direct to consumer and being hands-on. However, one thing I must point out is her target consumer was definitely the woman that was 45 plus. So this works for a woman that is 45 plus that wants to have this experience and hates going to the stores, hates shopping online, and then they're able to bring in a very intimate clientele and provide an experience. So product distribution and how you do it is not just e-commerce or brick and mortar. There's multiple ways. If you don't know why Brianna's a millionaire, it's because her product distribution is based off of a membership. You can't shop on Fenty without a monthly membership. So you have to sign up. You have to have the subscription, and this money is coming out of your account every month, regardless of whether you spend it or not. So that's also a very, very smart distribution, is having a membership and or subscription boxes where people are required to sign up and pay a monthly installment, and of course can skip whenever they want to in order to actually sell their products. So definitely something to think about there. I think that you have to get creative with this market because you just never know how your customer is going to receive it. But you do have to study customer behavior, and you do have to have a great understanding of how your consumer shops. So like Rihanna has Fenty has every month. Now, you can do subscription boxes quarterly, depending on your target consumer. If she's more of a seasoned shopper, like doesn't shop every time she sees something, but more so like shops for spring, shops for fall, or shops them, you can have it where your stuff is, your subscription boxes are twice a year, or you can have them when they're 4 times a month. Ways of doing that. So We're going to take a quick little commercial break so we can hear from our sponsors, and then I'll dive back into different ways of creating product distribution through creativity and direct to consumer versus brick and mortar. Welcome back. Okay, so product distribution, and before we wrap up for today, so product distribution, think about it in a couple different key points. Who my target consumer is, what are their shopping behaviors, and how can I be creative in my distribution without jeopardizing the integrity of the product, and or deciding that I want to target a different target consumer, and then I want to change how my product is made up, specifically the raw materials, on how it's produced and what is to service that market. So as a designer, I'm pretty sure you hear it all the time: market research, target consumer, market research, target consumer. And then I hear so often, like, I don't know who that person is or what they do. And the best piece of advice that I can give is, if you really, really just don't know, that you have to decide who that person is, what age range they is, and then target that person. So we're not necessarily making up a target consumer. These women and these men and these children all already exist. You just have to find the market that the problem you're solving. And that's one of the biggest things when it comes to being a designer is, what problem are you solving for your consumer? If you're solving the problem for your consumer, you shouldn't have a problem identifying what that consumer is. There's so many behaviors. There's a fast fashion shopper. There is the contemporary shopper. There is the bridge shopper, the better shopper, the luxury shopper, the couture shopper. There's so many types of it. There's so many occupations too. Is your girl an influencer? Is your girl a doctor or a lawyer? A doctor or a lawyer probably requires more professional clothing. They probably want to go into the store and find things. Whereas your girl is more of an influencer. She can, she's a visionary, so she can see things online, know how it's going to fit, know how it's going to look, and is able to order it. But not everyone has that same ability, especially if they are not super duper well versed in fashion, or even their body type, or maybe their body is changing and there's somewhere in the middle. How do you capture that customer? Maybe the customer that just had a child and now she is postpartum. That customer, she is, a lot of times postpartum depression happens and she is probably insecure. She's emotional. She's hormonal. How do you service her? You create something that makes her feel confident. Her body has changed tremendously. So you make things that are stretchy. You make things that maybe even have compression built into it. You make things and you find things and you create products based off of a consumer market, opposed to making things that you like and hoping that they sell. And think about behaviors and how you distribute. Nowadays, you have designers that stay on the fashion calendar, and you have some designers that just do not care. Typically, the fast fashion calendar is people who are literally dropping new products every month. Whereas us designers that have a little bit more of a quality luxury feel, they're probably dropping a collection maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year. But they do that based off their consumer. If your consumer doesn't shop as often, absolutely no need to drop products every month. But if your consumer is a frequent shopper and she shops by event, that's somebody that you're gonna want. That's a shopper that is shops often, and that you're gonna definitely want to have e-commerce, because they're not going to the store every month. But somebody who is a little bit more, in touch with the quality side of things, they probably will take a day, go shopping, hit some stores, and take their time and find things that they need for their wardrobe, and or work with stylists, which is another place of actually not a place, it's another avenue of distribution. Working with stylists and then pulling is a form of distribution, because that's a form of visibility to get the product out more. I have some designers that literally just work off of being in showrooms, well, having stylists pull, and that's how they get their sales. Having a showroom presence and investing in a showroom, whether it be New York or LA, and you have stylists that are often going to these different places and grabbing product, gives them visibility to their clients. And of course, when stylists are pulling, it's because there's some type of event or some type of photography that's happening, and then it's now visual. Now it's online. Now it's on our social media platforms. Now it's in all these places. And that also brings people back into your website sales. So product distribution and your sales strategy go hand in hand. So depending on how you do, and as well as your marketing. So sales strategy, marketing, and product distribution are all together in one, and they must all work like a family. Same way in finance, where our cash flow statement, our profit and loss, and our is one more statement in there: profit and loss, cash flow, and income statement all work hand in hand. Those three work hand in hand as well. So what you want to do is map out a plan. Map out a plan for, first, I identified my target consumer. I think that the best route for me, based on my budget and based off of what I can do capacity wise, if you're a solo entrepreneur or if you have a team, is this is how I can distribute product. E-commerce makes the most sense for me because I am still the one that's packaging up my goods. I am on a smaller scale. I don't have enough units or enough bandwidth to stock an entire store. So now we've established how your product distribution is going to be. Okay, so now that we've decided that we're only going to be in e-commerce, now, okay, let's decide what our sales strategy is going to be. Our sales strategy has to really align with marketing. So if I decide that I want to sell a certain amount of units, you would then add up the retail price of those units by how you want to sell them, and that number, take 15% of that number. That is your marketing budget. So let me just run that back again. So you decide how much you want to sell in month one, I want this amount. In month two, I want this amount. And once you create a sales goal, you then take that number and take 15% of that number and create a marketing budget for that. Go back to your target consumer to understand how you should market these things. So your target consumer, where are they viewing things? Are they a podcast listener? Should you invest in ads with podcasts? Are they a transit rider? Can you invest in ads, on buses, on billboards, on trains? Is your target consumer let's say a music lover? Can you put ads on Spotify and on Pandora, or is that person just on social media all day? If they are, which platform? Because you have to decide whether you want things to be or all Instagram driven, TikTok driven, Pinterest. Of course, there is Facebook, there's Snapchat. Where is she? If she's on all, then maybe you have to cross and have your marketing and your advertising laid out on all. Is she a Fashion Network TV listener or viewer? Then you should get an ad right here on Fashion Network or Fashion TV. And then you can distribute your products that way too, because now they're watching this like, wait, who is that brand? Never even heard of them. So your advertising and how you decide has to go off of who your consumer is at the end of the day. And then, of course, one of the biggest product distributions of them all is trade shows. There is magic. There is coterie. There's a lot. I definitely suggest that you do your little research. Make sure you're in tune with Women's Wear Daily, CFDA. A lot of times they send out email marketing for this thing. So make sure you subscribe to their email list, letting you know when shows are coming and how they're coming. And if you're able to invest in having a booth there, you can sell a lot of wholesale merchandise there. But then you can also maybe even do consignment and work with smaller boutiques where you guys negotiate the terms. So having a brick and mortar does not necessarily mean that it is a big box retailer that you're partnering with. If you partner with smaller boutiques, you have a better chance of better terms, in my opinion, and you have a chance of actually having a smaller unit count that actually goes into the store. So working with boutiques is amazing and great foot traffic, and you also get a chance to gauge what people are liking and not liking without having to go the big box retailer route. Let's not forget about our online retailers. There is Look, there is Amazon, there is Poshmark. There's all these different places where they have multiple designers in one place. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. weigh out your options, understand your target consumer, align your sales strategy with your marketing strategy. And that is all for today. I hope that the product distribution, brick and mortar, and e-commerce, that you learned a lot today, and that you can take these things and apply them into your brands, and then you can flourish and be the best designers you can be, and continue to learn and grow and do everything you need to do to never stop creating and to excel in your business. So on that note, have an amazing week, and we will see you guys next week. Peace out.